All right. A friend of mine called me this morning and uh, he had heard the show about I don't know if it's a show, but the stream I did where I was talking about silver and I was asking the question, why is silver so inexpensive right now when everything else that we buy is inflated? How is silver um, still in the low 20s when the milk I bought today has gone up over 20% this year? And every other thing we buy has gone up that much. Well, this friend of mine, his name's Mitchell. He's a savvy investor, a smart guy. He's an accountant. He called me this morning and offered some answers. And this is what he told me. What he tells me jives with what I do know. What he told me has explanatory power. If what he says is true, it would explain what we're seeing in silver. I've got to do some more research, and you guys can do your own as well and see what you find out. But here's what he says. He says that silver shorting is different than shorting a stock. When you short a stock, you are borrowing a stock from someone, selling it at hopefully at a high price, and then you promise to return that stock to the lender, the stock lender, at a later date. So your goal would be to buy the stock again on the open market at a low price, and then reimburse the person you borrowed your stock from in kind. Right? You borrow 100 shares, you sell them, you promise in 90 days to give him some more. Later on, you buy 100 shares, hopefully cheaper, and reimburse your lender and hopefully pocket the difference. But this guy was telling me that that silver is different, that shorting contracts for silver are different, that um, you can short the silver, and then to make the contract whole or to complete the contract, you can complete that or fulfill it in cash. The assumption being that the cash is roughly a silver equivalent. But I don't think it is, right? Um, if this is true, then that would explain why. Um, that would explain uh, why the price continues to be low. The um, the buyers of the short contract never have to actually purchase silver and then to make it to make the contract whole, to complete the contract. It's ridiculous. Um, so I don't know if that's true. It seems like it is. It seems like there are naked silver short selling in here where it's the sale where someone sells bullion that they don't currently own and haven't even borrowed. So there seems to be a lot of naked shorting in in this market, and there are some folks that say the Fed uses bullion banks as an agent to put naked shorts on the COMEX to drive down the price of silver in order to protect the dollar, the value of the U.S. dollar. It also allows their member banks to buy that silver back at lower prices. Um, Now, there, there's a rumor and there are muttering that happens, and then people say, well, um, they would get squeezed, but if these guys are able to make those contracts whole and clear those out, then and they can do it in cash, then they don't really have to go buy the silver on the market and put that demand on the silver market. So I don't know. I don't know what the heck is going on here, uh, but it does. Lots of folks believe that there's lots of naked shorts out there in silver. So, uh, I was looking on the internet, stupid internet, and there are some people out there that say, well, if there were massive naked shorts, um, then you wouldn't have seen the increase in price over the last year. Well, maybe, but they don't really know what the price would be if it wasn't manipulated. I think it would be um, in the high 40s. I don't know. I don't know. So it'd be interesting if somebody could let me know what they know about these continuous contracts on silver. The NYMEX is the NYMEX silver continuous contract. That seems to be the culprit, but I'm not exactly sure how the damn things work yet. I don't know. Does anybody in the chat here know anything about this? You guys are getting to learn along with me. I haven't spent a lot of time in my days speculating in metals. Um, so I don't know nearly as much about this as I do some other things, and it's been interesting to make a study of this stuff. Um, Doing it in public is going to open me up to criticism as a know nothing, but I don't know much about this. All I know is that the prices don't seem to behave like we're told that precious metals should behave. So I'm very interested in finding out what the heck is going on with those things. Um, yeah, one of the guys in the chat says it sounds like it's still worth buying regardless. I think so. I don't think many people, I can't say not anybody, but I don't think many people would say that silver prices are too high. And I don't think very many people would say that they're actually where they're supposed to be either. I think that, so I think it's depressed. The price is depressed. I think it's manipulated. It seems to be. Go do your own homework. And if it is, then, it's artificially low. If um, if these naked shorts don't, if those naked shorts get squeezed and stuff gets weird, then those prices are going to just jump right up. It's going to jump right up. So we shall see. Zach says, "Call me crazy or backwards. Call me backwards." But he always thought that precious metals were not for investing, but for a safeguard if the dollar collapsed. Well, there's certainly that, but there's an arbitrage game too. Like if you find out that the price is artificially suppressed or artificially low, and you have a reason to believe that the short squeeze is going to happen, and that would make the price return to its actual intrinsic value, you can make the difference in the prices. So, I mean, it's speculation, maybe it's arbitrage, maybe, but that's a different game than using it for an inflation hedge. Although you get to benefit from that inflation hedge game too. So seems good to me. Seems good to me. So, hopefully somebody's listening to this and can jump in here someday and tell me a little bit more about this. I'm going to spend a little bit of time. I don't have a whole lot, but I'm going to spend a little time digging into this on the interweb, and I'm going to call a couple of people I know about these continuous contracts and see what's going on. Yeah, it will be darned interesting to learn more about this world. What a crock! What a crock it is. So we got a guy here in the Telegram chat who's looking at buying a couple of businesses. Oh, excuse me, got a yawn. Looking at buying a couple of businesses and wanted to talk about that. I directed him to a Scott stream that we did about small business and small business questions, and he said, well, he had some specific questions, so I thought we could do that. We can do that. And here we go. I'm going to unmute him. I'm not going to unmute him. I'm going to allow to speak. You can unmute yourself whenever you're ready there, and hip us to what's going on in your situation, man.
Hey there, Scott. Can you hear me?
Hey, there you go.
All right. Appreciate it. Appreciate you setting this up.
Sure. What's going on?
Especially for people like me who have not been raised in the world of business ownership and with parents that were very careful in terms of not taking risk for long-term gain and things like that. And some of us are kind of grasping at straws a little bit. So, on that note, I guess my first sort of specific question to you, Scott, is what what are some of the big red flags that you look for or you have looked for in the businesses that you've purchased or been or have looked to purchase? Because that is kind of the biggest unknown. I don't know what I don't know, and
Sure.
that's kind of the most I don't know, the most prominent thing in my mind as of now. And then I got a couple others when a couple other
Well,
questions.
a lot of people that um, a lot of people that are selling businesses are going to claim that they have um, off P&L profits or off P&L cash that you can't see. Like you could imagine that you would go to a some guy. This is the famous. This is the famous example. That you could go to some guy that has a coin operated car wash and he has a profit and loss statement, and the thing shows a $6,000 a year loss, and he says, "Yeah, but listen, dude, I brought $85,000 in quarters home. The real estate's worth X, and I'm getting $85,000 a year in quarters that that I don't declare on the taxes. So I want the price of the real estate plus a little bump for the cash. That happens all the time where the where the sellers claim that um, that so here's the technical term that people will use sometimes. Oh, we recast the profit and loss statement to show actuals. So sometimes they need to be recast. Like for example, maybe the business owner has maybe the business is buying a life insurance policy on the owner that you wouldn't buy, and that's showing as an expense, and maybe it's expensive, and you could drop that off and assume that that would be positive cash for you if you didn't have to buy that insurance policy. They'll often tell you, "Oh, listen, hey, my wife's Ford Expedition, her cell phone, all my kids' cell phone, the internet at home, the lady who cleans our house, and blah 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 blah, are in the P&Ls. We need to back that out, and then that will then make the profit number look bigger, and then you can pay us based on that." They can make all kinds of crazy claims based on that kind of stuff. So you need to, well, frankly, you need to not listen to that. If they're planning on selling their business, they need to run it real clean and very transparently for 2 or 3 years. And you need to pay them based on what the P&Ls show, and no hocus pocus or no other representations. They also You also need to be watching for um, leases that there can be office equipment leases. There can be um, they could be leasing all the computers and printers, and you got to watch and find all of that stuff to make sure that you're actually buying everything and not buying a bunch of different leases, which are really liabilities. And then you're going to be stuck needing to buy equipment that business has been leasing, or at least continue or renewing those leases. So watch those things. And then I want to look at all of the contracts. They need to have contracts for every single client that you can find. Um, and if they don't have a contract for that client, then I will assume that they're going to lose that client. Now, probably won't. You're going to buy a business and you're going to do a good job, and hopefully you'll do a better job than the previous owner, and you won't lose those clients. But we're in a negotiation here. Now, most businesses don't have recurring revenue that are based on contracts. If it's a service business that has walk-in customers, like I don't know, a shoe repair place, um, they're going to want what they call blue sky, or some payment for customer goodwill. Customer goodwill is the technical term, but sometimes people call it blue sky, right? A business is going to have equipment and assets, and it's going to make money, hopefully. And often that money is made on customers that are maybe repeat customers, but you don't have contracts for them and you have no assurance that they're coming back other than the customer's goodwill towards the business. The business seller is going to want to be compensated for that goodwill, and he or she is right to want to be compensated for that goodwill, but you really can't pay much for it. That goodwill is not worth as much as the seller thinks it's worth, and you're going to have to be very, very careful with that. I think most service businesses are frankly not worth much more than their equipments. And that's really not just my judgment. It's been a while since I bought one, but that is the considered a position really from the market. If you have a plumbing business, most of them are going to sell for what their equipment is worth, plus just a little bit. That's a bad deal if you're a boomer and you're trying to sell your business and go into retirement. But for you, that's a good thing. So when they talk up their customer goodwill, when they talk up about how loyal their clients are, when they talk about how reliable their cash flow is, and how flat how flat and steady the cash flow is, don't listen to them. That may be true, but you need to not listen to them because you can't bank on that. You can't bank on the door swinging, people coming in and out of that door. You can't make that much. You can't throw your savings down in front of them and walk off, take that business on the prayer that door is going to swing and the clients are going to come in and ring the cash register. Yeah, there you go.
So Scott, on that last note, then, for service businesses not usually being much more than the cost of their equipment, the cost of the equipment, that's something that would show up in their sort of, not the profit and loss, but asset and liability statements, or how does that?
It's hard to say. A lot of people that own small service businesses don't keep a good balance sheet. The balance sheet should show, what they paid for the thing, what they owe for stuff. That's going to be in the liabilities page or portion of the thing, and it should also show depreciation. But they often don't. Small businesses really don't care about that. They really don't. When you're operating it, you don't care about that. Depreciation's a weird artifact. It's not. I mean, it happens, but when you're, doing your plumbing service calls, you're not really worried about depreciation that much. It matters for sure, but small businesses tend to not worry about that because the owner is aware that his truck is getting more miles on it. He's aware that their sewer machine is going to need to be replaced. He's aware intuitively of the depreciations that are taking place and doesn't worry about it on the balance sheet. So when you look at the balance sheet, you're probably not going to see what you need to see there. You're going to have to look at what they've got. By all means, look at the balance sheet. What you're going to want more than that is an asset list or inventory. And you're going to want to figure out what that stuff's worth as it is, where it is. If it's a old worn out piece of equipment, it's not worth much. If it's a brand new CNC mill, it's worth a lot, but you need to figure out what it's worth as it is, where it is. Some of the equipment you probably won't want. There's some of the equipment that is outmoded, worn out, frankly, just not used enough. Over the years, we tend to accumulate equipment that we thought we needed but don't need, or we had an opportunity to buy a piece of equipment on the cheap or buy a piece of equipment for a particular job and it made sense at the time, but then it lays there and in the tool bin forever. and you may not want to pay for those things. Chances are you'll have to. The owner is going to want, he's not going to want to go through there and sell everything to you piecemeal, but that needs to be taken into account. When I bought data storage, uh, it had a deuce and a half truck, a 2.5 ton truck. I didn't really want. It had, well, it had a number of things I didn't really want, but I ended up taking them all. But I wanted to make sure that the overall price reflected, um, reflected that I didn't want all of the stuff there. And it did. The price was good enough that it made it worth it for me to walk off with those things. Um, Another thing that you're going to see as an asset in some of these businesses are parts and inventories of retail goods, maybe. So you need to be looking at that. I looked at a auto parts store at one point to purchase, and um, it was a mom and pop auto parts store, an independent, and they had, I don't know, $200,000 worth of automobile parts on the shelf. You can imagine spark plugs, water pumps, all that kind of stuff, whatever. Well, you start digging in there and you find out that he's got a set of points for a 57 Studebaker, and he's got, wheel bearings for an International Harvester pickup truck. You know, those things are not worth. Um, I mean, on one hand, you're probably thinking, wow, you could sell those for good money on eBay, blah, blah, blah. Maybe so, but he has traffic coming in and out buying air filters, fuel filters, all kinds of, you know, um, expendable parts for modern automobiles that just come through the door. His cost of sales there is very low. It doesn't take him much time. But those older parts, you would have to, I don't know, put an ad in Hemmings Motor News or put them on eBay or something. So those are going to be a pain, and they're taking up space on the shelf, and they need to be moved because always remember that inventory is waste. So when you look at the inventory and the parts that the business holds, you need to look at, are all of these saleable? Because there is always a certain amount of inventory that's actually not saleable. It's either obsolete, no, there is no demand for it, or it's damaged. And small businesses often don't go through their inventories and call that stuff out and move it. Once they've got it, it doesn't cost them a great deal to have it on the shelf, and they'll just wait, in hopes that somebody comes in needing those ignition points for that Studebaker. But um, there could be a lot of that stuff in inventory, so you're going to make sure you're not paying, you're not paying big money for bad inventory. I don't even remember what the question was. I was talking about inventory, but there's that.
Thanks, Scott. I got another question for you, if I may.
Yeah, yeah.
So, for what I'm considering, it is a business. It would be um, upholstery, right? Which is obviously very service oriented. I actually received a message from the current owners. They want to have me come down next week to walk the shop and sort of show me what they do, how they do what they do. Um, so my question in as part of that is sort of one of the things that I will be probably trying to focus on is identifying areas where improvement can be made, sort of low hanging fruit, at least to start with, and then maybe taking bigger, looking long term down the road type stuff in terms of how to improve that business as time goes on.
Yeah.
Assuming everything else goes well. What's sort of your approach to identifying those things? Are there clear indicators, in your opinion, that things that can or should be looked at for how to improve? If that
Yeah.
question makes sense, I'm not sure.
Yeah, having looked at a bunch of these and, kind of and consulted for people, the small businesses who, maybe aren't selling, but just wanna fix some things. The things that you're gonna find that are that have room for improvement are almost always the same. And in small businesses, those places, those, areas for improvement where the most bang for your buck is to be had are almost always advertising and sales. Notice I didn't say marketing. We're not marketing. We're not trying to create a market for our product. We're a small business person. Chances are we don't have a new product that does not have a market. We're probably in a business that is in a mature, industry, let's say, and people know what the hell it is, and we don't have to convince them that they need upholstery services. Somebody's out there saying, "Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, they do." Um, no, they don't. What you need to be able to do is advertise your business effectively and at a low enough cost that you can get sales, and you probably will need a sales force. That sales force is probably going to be you, and there's nothing wrong with that. They are almost always really lazy with that because nobody likes to do it. Most people that own small businesses are good at what the small business is. You know, the guy likes to do upholstery. The guy likes to refinish furniture. He's probably really good at it. He wants to do that. He didn't get into that business because he's like, man, you know what I want to do? I want to make cold calls. So they're probably not doing the best job they can of getting to drive sales through the door. Um, and almost every person that I've ever talked to that had a small business who I told that could not conceive of how they would even do that. And that may be what you're thinking about right now. And I'll tell you, if I owned an upholstery shop, I would be calling every office furniture store in town, all the big businesses I could find, and I would be trying to get deals to reupholster Herman Miller chairs, steel case chairs. I would have a website focused on, refinishing and refurbishing steel case and Herman Miller and commercial furniture. I would make sure I had a selection of fabrics where I could go to office managers and show them that I could recover their dingy, worn out looking cubicles so that they didn't have to buy new cubicles and etc. Right? I would probably look for other things that you could do in the commercial world with upholstery, like manufacture acoustic tiles, which are basically wall upholstery, and put together a sales spiel, a sales funnel with a website, an email list, etc., focused on getting those sales through the door. There are other places you could go, maybe automobile dealerships, maybe um, boat dealers. I don't know. I'm not an upholstery guy, but you get the point. There's almost zero chance that your guy is doing that. So, yeah, that's what I would be looking for. Most small businesses are pretty stingy. Most of them, are trying to not spend a whole bunch of money for sport. If they are, you'll see it all right away. They'll have leases on new automobiles. They'll be leasing all the equipment. You'll see it right away, and you won't even have to flip over any rocks to find it. Most of them are run pretty thriftily, and the problem is they don't play good offense, and that's probably where you're going to find it. I can imagine a guy that owns an upholstery shop has never done a single cold call in his whole life.
That
There you go.
we will find out, I guess, next week.
Yeah.
Another one for you. So I know that the profit and loss, and the asset liability, um, I don't know, documentation, I guess, papers, whatever.
Mhm.
Those are, important things to pay attention to if you can, in terms of sort of numbers and financials in the business. What else other than inventory, which you mentioned, should we sort of be looking for in terms of that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Um, I always want to look at their tax returns. I'm not that interested in then a P&L that they like print out and hand me. I want to see what they're paying taxes on. Um, that's what I want to see. So when you look at a balance sheet, that's where the assets and liabilities are. And when you look at a profit and loss statement, I would want to see it from their last 3 tax returns. I would also want to see bank statements. So, they filed a tax return. Hell, they're not even due till October 15th this year. They're not due until October 15th for 2020. So they may not have even filed yet. Wait a minute. No, corporate was due in July, but personals aren't due until October 15th. And this may be a personal, I mean, he may have a pass through kind of tax. He might have pass through taxing there. He might be just a sole proprietorship or something, but you want to see the tax return. If it's been some months since the tax year was closed out and the tax return was prepared, well, even if it was a month, I'd still want to see it. I would want to see some bank statements. So I would want to see that those deposits are still going in there. And of course, you'll want to see whatever bookkeeping they have. But the proof for me is what is going into the bank and what is coming out. Does that jive with what's on the P&Ls? Do those things match? And what do the tax returns say? And how closely does that match, what's in QuickBooks? All of us have our tax returns, have the P&L as represented on the tax return, and have the balance sheet as is represented on the tax return. It looks a little different than our bookkeeping that we use day to day. There's and it's not that anybody's cheating. They're for two different purposes. The IRS has its own rules, and then we have our own thing that we need to account for to operate the business efficiently. That's one of the reasons we have to pay accountants so much, is because we have to reconcile those two things: our interest in operating efficiently and our interest in not going to jail. So you'll want to be able to reconcile any differences you see in those two. Dig it?
Yeah, that tracks. It's basically doing what you can to make sure that they're pretty close to each other. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, and they're going to be a little different. And if they're different, you want to be able to find it. You want to be able to know why. And uh, you know, be careful when you're dealing with the seller. This is his baby. He created this thing. Probably he's nourished and and loved on it and bled on it. And they can get real defensive and just tell you, "Hey, beat it." Um, So, we have to be really diplomatic with them when you have those questions. Say, hey, man, my taxes look different than my actuals. Why is this difference here? What is that? Is that something I'm going to end up doing too? Be mindful of their feelings in this, because you don't want an adversarial deal going down. If it gets adversarial, just walk away. You know, um, Good deals are easy. Hard deals you don't want. I promise.
Yeah, that makes sense too. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, so for my particular situation, I don't know what it's not, this business isn't on the market. It's not on Biz Buy Sell or any of those kinds of websites. It's not going through a broker.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is
You don't
just
want one.
my,
Ever.
yeah, my brother-in-law actually works there. He's the primary, at this point, one of the primary employees. And so, there's
Did you say your brother or your brother-in-law?
my brother-in-law. Yeah.
Okay. Why didn't he
And
buy more?
because he does not want to own a business, he would rather uh, collect a paycheck. So he's a young kid. I mean, eh, he has a lot of the same nervousness that probably a lot of us in the group here do, about buying somebody else's business, but doesn't necessarily have the drive to push beyond that and to become successful throughout that, and to just sort of engage with challenge and conflict head on. So not he's a good kid, but he just doesn't have the stones for it, I don't think. So
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Um,
he lives at
yeah.
home and plays video games in his free time, and that's kind of his thing when he's not working. So
Yeah. Right. There you
yeah. um so anyways, So I don't know what the numbers are going to look like, what they're going to ask for. Um, at this point, I I do have some money shoveled away in my 401k that um, may be able to be tapped to if there's a sort of down payment needed, if these folks aren't willing to do seller financing and these kinds of things. I guess my question is, what are your sort of recommendations? What are the ways that you personally think are good methods of building up sort of startup capital to put down on something like this?
No, I mean, you just got to be super stingy and eat beans, you know. Um, I like the owner carries a lot. I want that owner, I want that owner earning out over time. I want that owner on the hook f- for additional help, you know. Like he needs you to make those payments, you know. And if he's
Owner,
if
sorry, Scott, owner carry, that's seller
that's when
financing or whatever, right?
yeah, that's right. He's carrying your
Okay.
note. He's loaning you the money, or in the
Okay.
way it actually, you know, you're making installment payments to him over a certain term, over for interest, right? And um, you know, I love that because you know, if you run into trouble, you need some help. You know, you can call the guy, and it's in his interest to help you out. And sometimes that help is, hey, we need another employee because we're slammed. I'll pay you, but the guy's willing to do it. And you don't have to train him. He's good to go. Other times it's advice. Other time, you know, maybe it's you've got a difficult client. It's a big client who has a good relationship with him. You're like, hey, Steve, whatever your name is, you know, hey, come and talk to me. Come with me to talk to a shitco over here because they're giving us the blues, and let's see if we can fix this. And you know, he'll come in and help with that. So I love the owner carry. Um, I wouldn't get a small business SBA loan. I wouldn't do it. I mean, it's I'll just go buy something else, buy something smaller. Um, Whatever. They're a huge pain. You'll spend an enormous amount of time over the whole life of the loan. They never leave you alone. You probably won't get one anyway. They tend to loan on really awful businesses. I've been turned down for them, and then find out they were loaning to somebody to start a DJ service. You know, it'd be a you know bring a portable speaker system, whatever, and DJ high school proms. It's just absurd. So I want nothing to do with those. Um, if you're buying something like in a upholstery shop, something you need to ask yourself is, do I actually need to buy this damn thing? Like, like I don't know what the tools and equipment for an upholstery business are, but it's not like a machine shop. You know, I can't imagine that you would have $1 million worth of equipment. I don't know. Maybe I'm being ignorant. But, could you start making those cold calls on your own? Could you build that website? Could you make those cold calls on your own? Could you serve that first client out of your garage and not even get involved with this business? If you buy that business, are you actually going to be getting a big leg up versus having started your own? I have a dear friend who is a retired plumber and glow in the dark smart. And he and I were talking the other day about plumbing, and he's like, "Oh no, listen, man, you don't want to buy a plumbing business or an HVAC business. Just start from zero." Um, he's like, "You'll be fine. You'll be money ahead if you just started from zero." And we talked about it at length. I think he's probably right. So there's a chance that if you start from zero with cash, um, in a small service business, that you would be ahead long term than if you had bought. You need to be brutally honest with yourself about that. Are you buying one just because you would be more confident if you had a going business? Um, Chances are, lots of people don't have the skills to run a going business, and they will mess it up. So if you started But you can get people can obtain those skills. And if you start from zero doing cold calls to try to get that first client that you're going to serve out of your garage, your business management skills are going to grow along with that, as opposed to just being thrown into a business that's got, $700,000 a year in sales or something and 2 employees.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's probably one of the biggest concerns.
Yeah.
When I have been looking again, just kind of scoping around on various websites on purchasing businesses around and whatever, the ones that have that higher price tag, I'd look at sideways because I just it seems like too much more risk than I want to take on for my current skills, being a wagey my whole life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
that's good.
I've talked to people that are like, "Well, of course I have these skills. I, I run the XYZ department down at SuxCore, and I have a $7 million budget for my department." It's not the same. It's not the same. It's more difficult to manage a business with a $700,000 a year revenue than to manage a single department with a budget 10 times that much inside of an existing organization. It's not the same. The scope of the kinds of decisions you'll have to make is way broader in a small business, and the consequences are much higher. If you screw up over there at SexCore, you're just going to get canned. You can get another job. You mess up over at your place, you get zeroed out maybe. Small business people make bets with all of their chips about every other year. And almost nobody does that. I have a friend, an acquaintance. He's not a friend. I shouldn't say that, but he is an acquaintance that I am friendly with, who he retired. He was a VP at a automobile manufacturer, made a ton of money, had a huge amount of responsibility. And I got in a big argument with him over dinner at one time about just that thing. I was like, you can't do what we do. There was another small business guy there with me. I was like, you can't do it right now. I mean, like, you could grow into it, but we have to make decisions all the time that if they go wrong, we have to go home and tell mom we don't have anything anymore. And I was just like, you'll just lose your job and you'll get a buyout. Like, what? What is that? It's not the same thing. And of course, he wouldn't have it. Well, I have 35 years experience. Like, yeah, whatever. It's not the same. It's not the same. And I'm not going to claim that I could do his job, but they're not the same. Yeah. Corporate
I
folk.
got maybe just one more sort of open-ended general question for you. And again, thanks so much for all this so far. I'm taking notes.
Sure. Sure. Well,
um,
I'm recording too. We'll push it out later.
awesome. Uh, what do you suggest as again just sort of generic best practices? What does it look like to own, to grow, to build a healthy business? What are the best practices that kind of go along with that?
Oh my God, I don't know what that means. Um,
Like, yeah, I know it's a little more open ended, I guess, but again, I'm just trying to grasp anything you got. So,
sure,
I
sure.
mean, keeping clean numbers, I assume that's probably the most, if not one of the most important things, right? That's just a matter of what tracking revenue, expenses, and uh, I'm not sure where to go, how far down
Yeah,
the rabbit hole to go with that. You know what I mean?
all the way. Kyle
I could,
in the
yeah,
chat just said good CPA for sure. I don't even agree. You have to do all of your own bookkeeping. So there are some things I have always done and that I insist on doing. And I've been told that I'm micromanaging, but I've got more money than the one that accuses me of that. Always. I've always done all my own bookkeeping. All of it. It's not that hard to do. The software is better every single day. Um, I was always able to do my bookkeeping on Thursdays. I would do all my bookkeeping and all my payables and police up my receivables on Thursdays. Um, the business grew by about 25 fold over the years, and it never took me more than about 4 hours. I could do my own bookkeeping in about the amount of time that it would take me to familiarize myself and get myself up to speed on the financial health of the business every month. If somebody's doing your bookkeeping, they're going to send you reports, or you're going to pull reports. You're going to have to look at that stuff, and you're going to have to figure out what's going on, and you're going to have questions and whatever. Well, if you just did the bookkeeping, intuitively, immediately what's happening. Kyle says, but for tax purposes, yeah, everybody acts like there's going to be, you're going to get beneficial tax treatment if you get better advice. You're going to pay more taxes if you don't get good advice. Small businesses that operate on cash, they're not highly leveraged, that don't have a bunch of shareholders, that aren't making a bunch of plays for property, buying out other businesses, blah 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 blah. There's nowhere to hide. You want to make sure that your tax slate is clean and that you're doing everything properly and you don't go to jail, but you're not going to minimize a tax bill. There aren't any loopholes. I mean, that's one of the great fictions. If you're a small business person, uh, you're going to get to take some toilet paper and some office supplies home and expend on the down low. But I mean, it's not gonna make the difference to you. By all means, get a tax accountant and use them. The tax returns are too complicated for you to do yourself, but it's not going to make a huge difference. But do your own bookkeeping. Don't lease stuff. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Buy stuff and own it. And watch your receivables like a hawk. Watch your receivables like a hawk. You bill, we get our upholstery business going. The local Steelcase dealer sent us 75 office chairs to recover. We recovered them. We sent them an invoice. They haven't paid it. Well, you need to keep your eye on that thing every single day, and you need to go collect that. Those receivables rot like fish. Like the older they get, the worse, the more worthless they are. And you need to watch that stuff on the reg, and go collect that stuff and collect it vigorously. I have gone into people's offices and told them that I was like, you owe me $3,900. I've sent you notices via mail. I've sent you certified mail. I have called you numerous times, and I'm getting ready to take $3,800 worth of shit out of here, or you can get me the money right now. And they're like, oh, I'm not going to be treated that way. I was like, yes, you are. You've got my money, and I'm here to get it. I ask nice. Now, I'm not going to beat anybody up, and I don't ever threaten them, but I get my money because here's the deal. They're probably having trouble paying their bills. Are they going to pay me that walked in that office and said, I'm here to get some shit, and I'm going to take that typewriter and I'm going to take the laptop off of your desk because you owe me $3,800? Are they going to write me a check, or the guy that forgot to check on his receivables that week? I'm going to get paid first. That stuff's not funny.
Have contracts written up for like your expectations or whatever with all that kind of stuff, and make your clients sign that kind of stuff? Or is it,
well, we had recurring service.
You gotta come in hard sometimes anyways. I mean, I've seen that. But yeah,
we had recurring service agreements with our clients that were 1, 3, or 5 years. We had some exceptions that were different terms than that, but mostly they were 1, 3, and 5 year deals. And everything was all spelled out, but you typically don't have to do it. If you're an upholstery shop, you're gonna have to do anything like that. The Uniform Commercial Code tells us folks in the United States how stuff is to be dealt with, right? So you can put on your invoices that it's a net 10, that you expect to get paid the net amount on that invoice within 10 days, or it's 5%, net 10, 5%, net 10, 12%, whatever. You put the terms on the invoice and they're supposed to pay it. The invoice is a contract. When they come in, they drop off the 40 office chairs. You need to have some sort of a form where you write down what it is and what the work is to be, and they sign it. Well, the Uniform Commercial Code, I'm not an attorney, but the Uniform Commercial Code, I believe, will dictate everything that you need within that. Now, some of that stuff might go to small claims court. I have been there. I've never had anybody take me there. I've taken other people there in a small claims court. Your work order with their signature, and your invoice that is properly dated, it has a unique invoice number on it, is clearly understandable with terms on it, is going to cause you to get a judgment more than likely. And then you're going to have to, then you got to do an asset hearing. I asked for one on the spot where and the judge will make them turn their pockets out, wrong side out. And I'll ask for their watch and any money in their wallet. You can do that. So you probably don't have to worry about contracts too much, but you do need a few forms, like a work order form. And then of course, you just use QuickBooks or something like that and generate just a stock invoice in there. And that's probably going to be enough for most cases. If you have a client or that you're going to their facility, let's say you're taking cubicles down, bringing them back to your facility, recovering, and then bring them back. And it's going to be, they got 8,000 cubicles and you're going to be doing that over the course of 6 months. You probably need to write that up. But most of your clients, I would guess in an upholstery shop that you wouldn't need to do that. So keep your own bookkeeping, watch those receivables, and I'll never lease. You're probably going to have to lease real estate, but as far as equipment's concerned, never lease. I will rent short term. If you need a backhoe one day, go rent a backhoe. Don't buy one, but no long-term leases. And then, what was the other one? Oh my, it just left me. I've told this story 10,000 times and it just left me. Watch recurring expenses. Just like a household, you're going to have recurring expenses in the business that just show up over, and they just show up, and they multiply somehow, at Online Great Books, we had a stamps.com account. It's like $14 a month. Well, we don't use it anymore. I saw it in there and cut it out, but I was looking for those things. I had forgotten it was there. The small businesses have more moving parts than a household, and those little recurring expenses and the big recurring expenses can hide more readily in a business than they can at home. So watch for those things. Watch them like a hawk. And it's your money, man, and it's your family's money, and you got to be dead serious about it. If somebody owes you money, you need to go get that money. You need to go get that money. And I've had people tell me many times, "Oh, this is so unprofessional of you." I'm like, hey, you know what? You're the one that hasn't paid your fucking bill. So go print that check. I'll sit right here. I'll be here when you get back. So when you hear that kind of stuff from people, they're frauds and they're liars and they're just trying to make you feel bad. They've got your money. And I hold no patience for that kind of stuff. People that don't pay their bills. What else, man?
That's a lot of, that really covered quite a bit. That's mostly what I got for now. I'm sure I'll have more, after I go and have this meeting next week. But I think that's probably pretty good for me for now, man. Appreciate you. Thanks.
Good deal. I'll be honest with you. You sound green. I'll be honest. You sound green as a gourd. I'm worried about you. I think you need to start one out of your garage. I think you need to start making those service calls. I think you need to, or not service calls, those sales calls. I mean, if you want to do upholstery, if that's what you want to do, then I think you should start right now. You need to make those service call. Crap, I did it again. Those sales calls. Uh, Build yourself a WordPress website. Um, Advertise it on everywhere you can. Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. I have no idea. Right, wherever you can, call those. Call the antique stores. You know, try to get some work. And then continue working on buying the business too. Like, what if you decided that buying the business was the best possible thing that you could do, but you'd already been working for 90 days, making 10 sales calls a day? Well, that's doubly good, you know? So you can't lose working on that right now. And you're going to learn a lot from just, even if you haven't gotten a customer yet, you're going to learn a ton from doing sales calls in regard to that industry and in regard to that service. You're going to know more about what you're looking at when you look at that business if you've made 50 of those cold calls. I can't tell you what those things are you're going to learn, but you'll get an insight, right? You're going to make some cold calls. You're going to get hung up on a lot. You're not going to get through most of the time. You're just not going to talk to anybody important, but you're going to talk to some people every now and then, and you're going to find out who they're using now. That's going to tell you who who your competition is. You're going to call some and you're going to find out they're already customers of the company you're going to buy, maybe. Hey, tell me a little bit about them. Uh, you're going to find, if they're not using somebody, you're going to find out why not. You're going to learn a lot from those calls, and you're going to learn something about yourself. If you're not willing to do those cold calls, then just don't buy a business. Don't do it. Nobody likes cold calling. I don't like it, but I've done thousands of hours of it. It's part of it, man. If you're not willing to pick up the phone and make that cold call, then don't do it. You're going to call an antique shop. They're going to answer the phone. You're going to say, "Hey, my name's Scott, and I'm at Hambrick's Upholstery Service, and we specialize in two things. We recover used office equipment and make people's investments in their expensive office furniture last longer and reduce their costs by doing that. And then we also are very interested in doing high-end reupholstery and refinishing of valuable antique furniture. We would love to get one piece from you and show you what we could do. Do you have anything coming up anytime soon that we could use to demonstrate how good our service is to you?" And some of them are they're gonna hang up on you, but somebody's gonna say yes, and then it's showtime. Then you have to do something. You have to do a good job. I've never done a upholstery service cold call before.
My first gig was selling Cutco knives, and pretty much the
There you go.
majority of that is cold calls. But there is the difference. One difference maybe being that's a product. It's not a service. So certainly
Well,
making cold calls for a service will be a little different, but the concepts are probably pretty similar. So
oh
I'm used to
yeah,
getting hung up on.
and the bigger problem is, you found out when you were selling Cutco knives, can you tolerate the rejection from the cold calling? And if you can, you're good to go. Your cold calls are not going to be very good at the beginning. Unlike Cutco, you're not going to have training. You're not going to have scripts. Um, you're not going to have business cards. You're not going to have brochures. You're not going to have samples. You're not going to have shit to get started. You'll be completely unsupported because there's no corporation behind you. It's just you. So you'll get you'll learn from those cold calls. What are the materials, the sales materials I need? What are the questions they're asking? What are my answers for those questions? It's going to take you a year or 18 months to figure all that stuff out, and you're going to really stink at it. I mean, almost anybody would, stepping into that new business, doing cold calls, unsupported. But you'll figure it out. It's just going to take a while. And then by the time done it for 3 years, you probably should have called every furniture dealer, every major, the office services people at the major companies around you and every antique store multiple times. When you call, they should say, "Oh, it's Austin again." Like, they ought to know who you are, and you ought to know who they are at that point. And, you know, then it's off to the races.
Love it. Thanks, Scott.
What are you gonna do?
Sorry, you cut out a little bit there. What's that?
I said, "What are you gonna do?"
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is, I mean, I need to do a little bit of research on the industry specifically. What are the tools? What's the not the tools, but well, yeah, what is the gear that's used for the various um, you know upholstery techniques and whatnot. I'll probably actually call my brother-in-law as well to ask him sort of what does his day look like, more somewhat specifically what's the stuff he's working on, so that I can kind of know the niche that this specific um, company already exists in, right? How
I
busy is he? How how
if
much time does he spend doing this versus that task and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
if you're serious about this, and it sounds like you are. If Well, wait a minute. If I were you and I was as serious about it as I think you are, here's what I would do. I would call the owner tomorrow and I would say, "Can I work there after my main gig and on Saturdays for minimum wage?" And and then I would ask him. I would work there for a little while. May not take you very long, a couple weeks, maybe 1 week. And if he said, "Man, I can't afford you," then I'd do it for free. I'd say, "Okay, well, I'll come in for free. I'll sweep the floor, but I need to be there because I don't know enough." Be completely honest with you. I don't know enough, so I'd like to work there, and you can start me out sweeping the floor, but I'm gonna learn quick. And then once I had been doing that for a very short period of time, I would ask him, "May I do sales cold calls for you?" And, that's your market research. Right, you're gonna learn about the tools, you're gonna learn about all that stuff by hanging out there at the shop, seeing how the tools are used and what condition those tools are in. You're gonna be making notes, and then you can go home, or when you're in the bathroom, you can look this stuff up on eBay, just how much is that stapler worth, and, whatever, I don't even know, it's upholstery stuff. And then when you start doing those cold calls, you're gonna learn a lot about what that market's like. But don't try doing your research in a vacuum. You don't even know what to research. I don't know what to research either. I don't know what to research either. Um, but when you work there, um, those things will become evident. You're going to waste your time looking up a bunch of stuff that's not even relevant, probably because neither you nor I know enough about the upholstery biz to look under the right rocks.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
Go work in the shop, and it's going to endear you to the seller too. And while you're there, you're going to find out if he's a crook, if he's a peckerhead. You're going to find out something about him. Um, I bought data storage from Bob Land in 1998. I was a kid. He was super kind to me. He worked me really hard. I worked for him for quite a while to get that deal swung. I mean, a long time to get that deal swung. But I didn't have any choice. I was a kid. But during that time, I learned that if I left my wallet with Bob Land for 10 years and came back, everything would be in it, and he might even give me interest for it. I mean, he was just as honest as he could possibly be. And so, you're going to find out something about that. And you need to find out about that stuff. And the only way you can do that is just seeing how the guy acts. If he kicks dogs, you don't want to work with him. You'll find out. Yep.
Yeah, man.
Anything else?
I think that's all I got. I think there's a lot to mull over with this. So yeah, no, it's good.
You don't want to make any mistakes, of course,
Yeah,
but you also don't want to overthink it. You don't want to overthink it. You want to bias towards action, right? So if there's an
definitely.
action you can take that'll make you safer, do that thing. So I believe that action is for you to work, come in to his shop before you go to work or after you go to work or on the weekend, put in the time there, right? That's action. Clicking on things on the internet and doing searches and checking out a book on upholstery or whatever is going to make us feel busy, but you're really not going to learn anything. You've got to go take action. Yep. So we'll check back in with you here soon. And if you haven't done anything, we're going to ridicule you.
Expected by now.
All right. All right. I'll
Thank you,
stick
sir.
around here just a little bit. Hey, you're welcome, man. Good luck.
Thanks.
If you bust your ass, you won't need luck. Who else? Does anybody else want to talk anything about this before I get off of here? And we'll push this thing out on Scott's stream, and I'll post it on scotthambrick.com. Yeah. See if anybody else has got anything. They can raise their hand and pipe up here. If they don't, then we'll get off and regroup and do it again at another time. Well, I put my Instagram account in the queue for deletion. You can't delete it right away. You have to put it in a queue, and then they put it in Instagram purgatory for 30 days. But I deleted that thing. Feels good, man. Feels good. So this right here will be it's Telegram and my podcast, the Music and Ideas Show, and the Online Great Books podcast will be the main ways. Well, and ScottHambrick.com will be the main ways that people can find me, in the main ways that I don't know, say things in public. Still thinking about the zine. I'm so interested in doing that, but I've got to tell you, the idea of having another deadline, of having people pay for something and having an expectation, of having customer service problems, where I mail out 100 zines and the postal service loses 3 of them, and I get emails from people like, "Where's my zine?" The idea of the thought of dealing with that stuff is absolutely repulsive to me right now. So I don't know. Right now, I'm not real keen on it. Love the idea of having that done and it existing, but I do not love the idea of actually doing it. So I'm going to have to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with that. Don't know. Anything else from you cats here? Carl says Oceans of Time have opened up as a result of him being booted off of Insta Squeeze. Yeah, he's thinking of learning Mandarin. You might as well. I, for one, welcome our Han overlords. Any more small business stuff? I love that stuff, guys. I love that stuff. When I was a kid, I listened to the Bruce Williams radio show on TalkNet, which is a syndicated radio thing. Gosh, I listened to it 5 nights a week. And it was just small business and personal finance advice. And Bruce Williams, man, gave me a better education, I think, that you could get at any business school. And I just don't think it exists. I don't know who else is doing that, and I miss it. And I don't know. That's just a great deal of fun for me. And it's a great deal of fun to think about those problems and to evaluate businesses. I just love that stuff. And Justin says, thinking about starting a business that would require a large upfront equipment purchase, working on financing right now. Is it a bad idea to start out that way? I don't know. Not necessarily. You want to talk about it, Justin, or you want to be shy? Hmm? I've allowed you to speak here. You can unmute if you want to.
All right, I think I'm unmuted.
What's up, Bubba? Yeah, I can
How's
hear
it
you.
going?
Yeah, it is good. I don't have my red beer though, but we'll live. What
Anything else, Mike?
are you thinking about the kiln? Are you thinking about the lumber kiln
Yeah, I'm still working on
business?
that.
Yeah, tell me about it if you want to.
Sure. So, obviously, kiln, you dry lumber, and I'm looking at mostly using it as offering the drying as a service. So, basically, people pay a certain amount for per board foot per day that it's in the kiln, and you arrange all that up front, and dry their wood, give it back to them, collect a check. At least it seems that easy in theory. Um, the pros to this is that I could pretty much do it while keeping my full-time job, and
I love it.
it could, you know, if I can manage to keep the kiln full, a healthy percentage of the year, it could turn almost another salary for me, that
Right,
is largely unattended.
right.
So that's the idea. It sounds a little too good to be true. The kiln I'm looking at is a specific type of kiln. It's a vacuum kiln. There are dehumidification kilns and solar kilns and wood-fired kilns and electric-fired kilns and all sorts of other kinds of kilns. The pro of a vacuum kiln is that it can dry wood about twice as fast as a dehumidification kiln, which is probably the most common that's out there. Um, and the pro to that,
Yeah,
obviously, is it,
energy
yeah,
costs are gonna be lower on that, and yeah, I could see that.
yeah, it
Well,
only costs like $450 to run one of these things for a month, which is nothing.
yeah. How much is one of these machines?
The one I'm looking at would be 90K up front,
Yeah.
so not
So
huge as far as equipment goes, but huge as far as me buying it goes.
well, that's all. Yeah, it's not like a D9 dozer or something like that, but it's not nothing. But I'll tell you what, that's a moonshot if you don't have a client.
Yeah, yeah. So I've
Yeah, I
compiled a list of about 75 local sawyers. I've called about 50 of them. The
you
bad
have
thing about
already.
that is, yeah, yeah. The bad thing
Excellent.
about that is none of it's contractual. It's all hearsay. They're all like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
sure, I could recommend you all sorts of people, but that evaporates into nothing pretty quick when you come calling for actual customers.
Right. Um, yeah, but you've been doing the calling, um, and if they're not hanging up on you, and they're interested, and you actually have the kiln, you're probably going to put some boards in it.
I think so, and I do have sawmill, so I could put some of my own lumber in it to start off if the thing's empty. Um, I I
I
do
like
know that
I like
there's
the Armageddon play too, bro.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be, yeah, one more step, right?
Um, I, if I were you, I would be trying to get at least a handshake from 2 or 3 or 4 of these people. Is something chattering? Get a tool chattering over there?
I probably got some traffic on the street.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, I would be trying to get some of these people to at least give me a handshake. That they would give me the business, and and then I would also look and do you have enough lumber that you could of your own so you could defray some of that. But if you're just betting on the come, you don't have any handshakes, not even a handshake. I'd be scared to go buy the darn thing. Um, Financing, I would try to finance it if I was going to, which I sure wouldn't want to. But if you have to, um, you're probably going to be able to get pretty decent dealer financing on that. Would be my guess.
Yeah, I'm working with their dealer financing.
Yeah, I bet
But
it's
that
going to be
being
great.
said, I'm currently not in any sort of lumber. I can't say that I have experience or whatever in that particular industry. So they're going to treat it as startup financing, essentially, which I understand will come with a little bit of a higher hit.
Right. Yeah. But you're probably going to get pretty decent term. You're going to probably going to get as good a term from them as you will anybody else. I don't know. I'm not haven't spent a lot of time looking into borrowing money at all, frankly. But yep, put as much money down on it as you can, and make sure you got some clients. I like your deal better than Austin's upholstery deal. If you buy your kiln right, get some revenue going, and it fails, you still got the kiln and you can sell it. You're not going to get wiped out for 90.
Right.
Sounds okay to me.
My understanding, and I can't find hard data on this, is that the depreciation on these things is really low.
Yeah, I mean, there's no moving parts. There's just seals, right? In a pump.
It's basically a shipping container. It's not a shipping container, but it's basically a shipping container with a pump and a small heater in it.
Right. Yeah, it sounds good to me. How much money can you throw down on it?
It depends. I'm going to want some working capital. I mean, if I liquidated some things, I could probably buy the thing outright, but it would leave me with no capital anywhere. So I'm not going to be able to do that. But they're going to require
sell the boat.
What's
that? Definitely sell the boat, sell the extra car. Get shuck everything you can, get real skinny, and put as much as you can in it. And like you said, you'll need some capital, but man, you won't need a lot. I mean, you'll need some electrical work done, right? You'll have to have the electrician come out, probably put some 3-phase in. And
actually, it'll run off a single, actually.
Really? I like it better all the time. Well, the next one you get, the bigger one you're going to get, that one will be 3-phase, but that'll be on the new property that you have to go purchase. But it sounds good to me, man.
I'm pretty lucky. My father-in-law has an old business location that he's not using anymore, and he's basically said I can use it for property taxes or cost of property taxes. And he's also got an old crappy but still running forklift out there that I can use. So that's almost tailor-made.
I like it. Keep making those cool calls.
Okay. I've talked to 2 other kiln operators in the area. I say in the area, they're about 5 hours away. And they both have a backlog that exceeds 6 months pretty much yearly.
Wow.
So it seems like, I don't know, it seems like a fairy tale, which makes me nervous.
Well, there are unexploited niches out there, and it sounds like you found one. Be careful. But 90 grand's not, it's not a moonshot. You're not gonna, you're not gonna miss any meals probably.
No, like I said, we could cover it. Like worst comes to worst, we could cover it if we had to.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Without losing the house or whatnot.
Do it. Sounds good. Well, my wife just got home, so I'm gonna get off here and go talk to her. But you guys keep me apprised. I like it. I like it, Justin. I saw you mention it on Telegram or Slack or something the other day, and I was like, man, that sounds like a great niche. I've been thinking about buying a wood miser or something like that. I got a lot of cedar I could cut over here, but I don't have a kiln. I'm just gonna have to put that somewhere. I'm just gonna have to build another building to put that wood in and let it sit there for forever. And so drying that lumber is one of the reasons I hadn't bought a mill. So yeah,
a year per inch.
Yeah, it's going to be terrible. So yeah, I see it, man. I see it. Go for it.
All right, appreciate it.
All right. Well, there's that. Yeah, that was fun for me. Hope you guys learned something. I hope it was interesting. And if anybody has something to add to what I've said, email me. Scott at scotthamburg.com, or get on Telegram and let me know. I'd be glad to. I'd be happy to hear anybody's feedback about what I said there. Good times. We'll do it again soon. Guys, let me know if there's anything y'all want to talk about, and we'll get it done. Talk to y'all soon.